Yes, I'm here to present this report commissioned by WorldDAB on public policies that can help the rollout, implementation, and adoption of DAB+. Why are public policies important? Public policies have the ability to change course, to determine, for instance, the pace of this adoption and rollout of DAB+. They can influence a lot the timings, they can influence the level of competitions, they can influence also the level of protection for consumers. For instance, if we would have a lot of money, government could buy DAB devices for all the people in the country, all the households in the countries. That would have a meaningful impact. It would accelerate certainly the adoption, but of course, probably most governments cannot afford to do that, right? But you can see that there are many different elements that can be put in place to identify opportunities for everybody, to identify benefits for everybody, to identify risk and manage those risks, and also to create opportunities for the different stakeholders involved. That's why probably you have heard in the last years when we were meeting in fora like this, we're always saying, using this mantra of compete on content, collaborate in technology. That's right, but that's not enough. To this, we should add frame with public policy. And that's why WorldDAB came to South 180 to create a toolbox, basically a compilation and curation of a set of different tools that regulatory authorities and governments can put in place to accelerate the path of DAB deployment. As a result of all the research that we did, we developed a series of public policy inventory, let's say, tools that can be put in place. I will not go through all of these. I would need like the whole event. But I will focus on 4 things that are important in the case of the vehicles, of the automotive. First is the need for having, obviously, receivers to receive that. Second is prominence. We are hearing a lot about that today. The third element is guaranteeing that there is enough road coverage. And the fourth element is emergency warning in the car. I will start with the need for receivers. Here, we have probably what is one or the most impactful public policy ever in the field of digital radio, which is the mandate of digital radio tuners in cars enacted in the European Electronic Communications Code, which, by the way, is not the only part of the world where this exists. There is also a mandate in the 6 countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council in the Middle East. But the European case has been running for longer, and we have more data on the impact that this has generated. Actually, this was approved in the end of 2018. It just entered into force at the end of 2020. And we have looked into the data, thanks to the data compiled by WorldDAB. From 2019 to 2025, there have been sold 60 million cars in Europe that have DAB. Without this public policy intervention, that figure would be just half of it. So thanks to this public policy intervention, this mandate of digital receiver in cars, there are an additional 30 million cars on European roads equipped with DAB. Of course, this is a huge impact, but the impact does not stop here. Vans, light commercial vehicles, were excluded from this mandate. But as most of manufacturers of these vehicles are also the manufacturers of cars, this has also had an impact on light commercial vehicles. In the last 7 years, more than 5 million light commercial vehicles have been sold with DAB+ in Europe. Without that mandate, that figure would be about half of it. Also here, there is a missed opportunity. If light commercial vehicles would have been included in the mandate, now we would have 50% more of those commercial vehicles already equipped with DAB+. That's about 2.5 million cars. This means, I think these figures are very important in the current debates about digital networks act. This shows how a policy can have a very positive impact in the industry. And these figures show that. Also, this policy had an unintended but very positive consequence. So when 5, 6, 7 years ago we were in these kind of meetings, one of the main points of discussion was, okay, but how do we get people to get radio in the cars? Because, okay, we are selling some tabletop radio sets, but people change cars every 10 years. So if they start now, which they are not doing, it will take us 10 years to arrive there. Well, with this policy intervention, what we see is that now there are millions of cars in European roads that have that equipment, and this means that some countries have seen the possibility of launching because it's easier. And that's my personal opinion as an independent analyst, but the recent launches in Spain, Ireland, some of the Baltics, Western Balkans, I think that they are influenced in a big part because we have those devices that without this policy intervention would not have been there. So this shows the importance of having this. The second element is prominence. But I think that the guys already made the point, so I will not go deeper into this. And then after this, there is another session where they explain the German case. They have thought a lot about this. But what I will say is that we can have the devices there in the car, thanks to the mandate, for instance. But if it's not easy to find the radio button, if you have to go to navigate through many buttons, if the voice does not recognize the station, that policy intervention is totally useless, right? So it's not just one of the other. Sometimes you need to combine different policies to get the results that you are looking for. The third element is road coverage. Here it's nice to see some countries. I remember the coverage map from France or Saudi Arabia. You see like the straight lines of coverage in the roads. Of course, you need to be strategic. Do you cover like this road or do you cover this road? Of course, you have to make these decisions. You cannot do everything at the same time. But then you use criteria, and the report, the toolbox already offers some elements to decide on what criteria should be used. I would like to focus here in this point of the road coverage in a specific element, which is tunnels. Tunnels is about broadcast radio, but it's also about safety. So we already have experiences of how badly it can go if there is an accident in a tunnel. So it's a critical element in terms of road coverage and road safety. If you have radio coverage in the tunnel, this means that you can provide information through the radio to the drivers and passengers there in the cars. But it also means that road authorities and police can interrupt the broadcast to send safety alerts. So the issue is more about road safety, and this is why in many countries there are regulations. And for instance, we have a new directive on tunnel safety, which includes also radio. In Europe, as you know, we probably have a new directive for nearly everything. But in this case, there is this regulation, and many countries have similar regulations in place that actually facilitate to have, right now, mostly FM coverage. But if we are moving and we are progressing towards more adoption of DAB+, we should consider including that DAB coverage in tunnels. Again, you cannot do this overnight. So thinking long-term, a strategic approach would be, okay, every time that we have a renovation in a tunnel, for instance, we will include this coverage. So this means that step by step and in an easier and less expensive way, we are covering those tunnels. The final element relates a lot to this tunnel element. This was one of the elements, the hottest topics, I would say, that came during the interviews that we did for this toolbox. ASI, Automatic Safety Alerts. There was a lot of interest on this feature. So we are in Germany today. 1 year ago, Germany was launching the first devices, certified devices in the market with ASI capabilities. Nowadays, there are dozens of those devices available in the market. Also recently, the Czech Republic, Czech Radio announced some trials on this technology. Also in some policy discussions in different countries, ASI is being considered. For instance, in the upcoming Spanish regulation on DAB, this is likely to be included there. So it's a super important element, and I'm happy to see that Gregor in the first session explained that already WorldDAB is working on this with the view of including ASI in upcoming radio receivers. So this is my summary. There is a lot of stuff there. Not all that stuff is related to vehicles. I have just focused on the vehicle part. Here you can download it. With this toolbox, what we want to do is building on the work, on the challenges that others have faced, to help those countries that are at a more initial stage of the process to move forward with less uncertainty. We know that uncertainty is one of the main barriers to move forward, but here you can find ideas, you can find inspiration to make your decisions. Actually, looking at this and looking at this catalog of different possibilities in terms of public policy, this can help you to ease decisions, make those decisions, accelerate the pace of the development, and also, because of all this, to reduce the cost for all the stakeholders involved. So if you go here, you will find the report, and if you prefer a video version, you will also find a video podcast with me and Jackie introducing this from a sofa, which is a very cool video podcast. Thank you very much.